It looks like our guest is here.
Yeah. And he even brought his guitar. Look at that. Rob Quist. All right, there you go. The late Rob Quist. Don't say that. That's really bad luck, man.
That's starting us off on a little sour note there.
Rob, well, if anybody knows about hitting sour notes, it's me, especially this early in the morning, right?
This is early in the morning? Are you kidding?
Oh, man. Well, it's been a late night for me. I had a wild one last night. We were coming in.
Are you sure you want to tell people about this?
Party like a rock star sort of late night? Or?
Well, you know, I wish that was what would have happened.
At our age, we can't do that anymore.
Well, I came in from Billings, and I was in Butte. And, of course, you know, coming through that stretch on Interstate 90, we hit a patch of black ice and slid into the median. And so sat there for several hours, you know, waiting because none of the wreckers would want to come out and pull us out. Finally, we got pulled out, and so it was a long
Are you
night.
okay?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Everybody's all right?
Everybody's fine. A little damage to the van, but not too much. So.
Wow.
Glad to hear you're safe. Yeah, it's pretty dangerous. I mean, just driving from the South Hills to work this morning, it was like a foggy ice rink. So
I know.
Pretty welcome to Montana.
Oh, yeah. Well, I should have remembered that. We had a bus wreck many years on that same stretch of highway that was really bad. And people were injured. And, of course, it totaled our bus, too. So we should have been a little more careful. But I think it had been a long day, so we were just kind of anxious to get to bed.
Well, wasn't that long ago we lost a candidate in Montana because of a dangerous wreck.
Right.
So stay safe on that.
Yeah, I know it. So.
Well, obviously you're here for a reason, and it's not just to gab with Peter and I, but you're actually running. A lot of people, think all the elections are over, but there's actually a primary going on right now underneath our noses. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Well, this is kind of a wild process. I mean, if anybody would have told me a month ago that I'd be sitting here talking about me being Montana's next congressman, I would have laughed in their face, But some people that I really respect approached me and said, Rob, you need to really think about doing this. And so, I said, well, what are you talking about? I'm no politician. And their response was, exactly.
Good. Yeah. Well, we have somebody who's not a politician about to be inaugurated today.
That's right.
So, hey.
Here for entertainers to get into politics.
Yeah.
But, of course, my wife, Bonnie, she's always, strong, intelligent woman, and she's always ready for a challenge, and she was on board immediately. Let's do this, and I thought, seriously? And so I had to really, consider this, very carefully. Obviously, it's for me to give up my life as a musician. It's not an easy choice to make because.
Now, don't you have a band to think about too?
Absolutely, and that's another consideration. I mean, since
they could all be part of your staff if you're elected.
Well, actually, and I'll tell you what, they've all been so supportive, and it's not just one band; it's several bands. With Mission Mountain, and of course my band of my Great Northern Backup Band, and also my buddies from college, the New Big Sky Singers. We've been performing together, and so, I guess then the next thing, I realized that I'd been, really representing Montana in many ways all my life through my music, and I was also a board member for the Montana Arts Council for 11 years, which taught me how government works, the inner workings. It works the same way. It's kind of a microcosm of government. So I had a good knowledge of how everything works in that regard. But also I was a cultural ambassador to Kumamoto, Japan, for 3 consecutive years for the Department of Commerce.
Right.
And and of course through the arts, and I've made a whole life study of Montana and the history and the culture, both Native and Euro-American. And so I realized in many ways I'd been preparing for something like this my entire life, and I knew this was going to be a great challenge. And but I thought, if the people of Montana want me to represent them as a voice in the halls of Congress, I need to do this. And so, of course, when I sent out, I called, all the people that are close to me to let them know, and I sent out an email to, to all my Mission Mountain buddies, and of course the response is, "Are you crazy? Why would you want to do this?" And so, but like I said, I think this is really unusual times we live in, and so I think that. This is a time for all of us to ask ourselves, how may I serve, and so I guess the answer to my question was that, I could put myself out there to be a representative for the people of Montana.
We're up against a break, so
I was just going to say, Al Franken didn't have to give up jokes when he joined the Senate. I don't know you have to give up music to join the House. Plus, I hear they don't actually work all that much. So you get like most of the year off.
Yeah,
so.
well, if John Tester can keep his farm, I can still play music now.
Well, yeah, if Denny Reber can continue raising llamas, you should be able to keep singing. So anyway, we're going to come right back, 721-1290. If you have a question for Rob Quist, he's here to answer your questions. We'll we're hoping you'll sing your campaign song for us.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You know me, I'm always ready to lay down a tune at any opportunity.
And for $5, I promise not to sing along.
Actually, I love when people sing along. That's what I'm all about, inclusiveness.
Okay, well, not with me. All right, we're going to be right back. Okay, welcome back. This is Talkback, 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian, and joining us in the studio, the one and only Rob Quist, Mission Mountain Wood Band fame, Great Northern, songwriter extraordinaire. Now, from what I understand, please refresh my memory, There's No Place Like Montana, has that kind of been adopted as the unofficial state song for Montana?
Well, I don't know.
I've heard that. So
there's several great songs written about Montana. My good friend Mark Staples, who you may know is recovering here in Missoula, but he wrote a great song called Harvest Time, or no, let's see, When Montana Sings, I think that they used. And of course, there's just several great songs. So, I'm really honored by the fact that people like My Lady Called Montana song. And of course, I've written a poem to kind of go on the front of that, So, it's hard to say, There's, like I said, there's a lot of people who have love for the big sky, and it comes out in the form of music.
Sure. Well, you might want to take off the cowboy hat and strap on the headphones because we've got a caller, and we'd like to put him on and have him talk with our guest. Oh, you'll like this. You'll like this nice lady. I think you probably already know her. Sue, good morning. You're on with the fabulous Rob Quist. How are you?
Good morning. Hi, Rob.
Is this Sue Orr?
It is.
I recognize your voice.
I recognize yours, too.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm wondering how you're doing with contacting all the state precinct committee people and lobbying them for their vote.
It's been going really well, and I'm just so honored to be able to get out and meet with all the delegates, because, they represent such a great cross-section of Montanans across the state. And, of course, the questions that they have are it's a learning experience for me as well. And I think that I relate to them very well because, in many ways, I've in different parts of my life, I've lived faced the same kind of challenges that they have. I've lived life on the ground, and for instance, when I was speaking with people out in eastern Montana about that are in the oil industry, I worked as a roustabout and a welder's assistant on a pipeliner crew for a summer. So I understand kind of the things that they go through, and of course, being raised in a wheat rancher and farmer rancher's son, I understand the concerns that many of those people face. So yeah, it's been great to connect with people from Montana all across the board, and I think I have to say I'm very encouraged by what's going on.
Well, that's good to hear. I know there's lots of conversations going back and forth here in Missoula, so keep up the good work.
Thank you, Sue, and I hope to see you again soon. I sure enjoyed being on your radio program as well.
Well, we enjoyed having you. Thanks.
All right. Well, we can give you a plug if you want, Sue. So we're big-hearted enough to do that. You've got your own little public radio station, right?
Community radio, Missoula Community Radio, KFGM 105.5.
Excellent.
We'll be launching on January 28th.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. You bet.
Bye-bye.
So Sue asked a really good question. What's this? Because this is something most people have never experienced. Even most Montana candidates haven't experienced this process of going and trying to get votes from, the various delegation. Usually they have to go to the public and try to think of what the public might want. But you have to think about what party insiders might want.
Yes, and I should explain that process. The way this works is that there are 135 special committee members, and every county that has a Democratic Party, and there's only 26 of them. I think in half of our counties there really isn't a Democratic Party. I think they're probably figuring, what's the use, right? there's 4 votes from each county, and then of course then there's also some of the what they call partner organizations, the AFL-CIO, the teachers union, and many groups like that, and then of course I think Governor Bullock has a vote as well as John Tester, and so
are there any super delegates?
No, there are not. Although many of them probably think they are pretty super, but and so that they're the ones that will choose the nominee, and so that's the process right now. And then of course, then from there, as soon as Ryan Zinke is confirmed as Secretary of the Interior, then there's literally 85 to 100 days until the election. And to my mind, this is the way every election cycle should be. I mean, these year-long campaigns, they wear everybody out. There's just election fatigue, and congressmen have to take time away from their jobs where they should be concentrating on doing their work for the people. And of course, then you have all the special interest money that gets involved, to sustain a campaign that long. And so I think people that should not have a voice in our politics are way too involved through the whole process. So I think that this would probably have to be part of my platform. 100-day elections, and let's get on with this, get her done.
Well, we got to go to a break, but before we do, just real quick, who are you running against? I mean, just everybody who could possibly be picked by this committee, or are there some strong candidates?
It's only Democrats, though.
Yeah, for this primary, it is Democrats, and it's the people who have thrown their hat in the ring are Kelly McCarthy from Billings, who's a legislator, also Casey Schreiner from Great Falls, he's in the legislature. And, of course, we all know Amanda Curtis, who did such a great job of stepping in. And she stepped in when John Walsh withdrew his candidacy, and she only had 12 weeks to campaign. And I think we were all so proud of her, that she did such a great job. She acquitted herself so well in those debates. And so, but I don't really consider them my opponents. They're the members of my team, and
I heard that there was a Baucus in the race as well. Is that?
Well, he hasn't really committed, and so I really can't speculate on what he plans to do. So I've heard rumors about that, but and of course I have a connection to the Baucus family as well. One of the first engagements we did as Mission Mountain Wood Band was to play for a young senator who was making his first run for Congress, Max Baucus. So yeah, the connections that we have. Really,
that's the first time in a long time someone has said Max Baucus and young senator. So
yeah, there you go. so you're automatically in like Flint on that one. So we're going to take a quick. When we come back, we would love you to have to sing your campaign song.
Absolutely, it's going to be a pretty scratchy voice in the morning, but I'll do my best.
That's okay. The people are used to that with me in the morning. So we will be right back. Okay, we are back here on Talk Back, and I've given Rob Quist my microphone because it sounds so much gooder.
Oh, yeah. Give me the one that makes me sound the best.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit closer.
All right.
Close to you.
Okay.
And you
close to you.
There you go. It's perfect. All right. So now, which song are you going to sing for us, Rob?
We know, of course, songwriters, we always are writing what's on our mind, right? And, of course, since this whole thing started, it's really, it's the way we express ourselves. And I realized that, Montanans really need someone to stand up for them. And so that's the theme of this song. And actually, it kind of got its start. I was, I do it since I'm a member of the Montana Arts Council, and I've developed a songwriting seminar that I take into schools to take kids through my songwriting process. And so this song actually got its roots in an anti-bullying session. And
right.
and so this class, it was interesting. The first class wanted to write a song about confronting the bully. Why do you want to be a bully? To me, And so the second class, I was so proud of them. They were all about advocating for standing up for the victim, and so we got a good start on this. And then I realized in a lot of ways, I was writing this song for my wife as well, because she was kind of being the victim of cyberbullying. And as we all know, and as we've all seen, that bullies are not just on the playground; they're everywhere. They're everywhere through life, and so this song, but kind of that's the way it got its roots. But then I realized I didn't really have to change too much of it to be a campaign song for me too. So
what's it called?
It's called "I Will Stand Up for You."
Okay.
And I know people are hurting. This world can be so cruel. And ugly rumors raging around you that make you feel just like a fool. But you can stand with me, and I will stand up for you. You are not alone, I want you to know. This world wouldn't be the same without you. And we can never be truly free until we lift all humanity. Don't ever let it get you down when trouble comes around. If you stand with me, then I will stand up for you. Now be a strong shoulder to lean on when life seems cold and bare. In every way I will defend you. Count on me to be there. And you can stand with me, and I will stand up for you. You are not alone, I want you to know. This world wouldn't be the same without you. We can never be truly free until we lift all humanity. Don't ever let it get you down when trouble comes around. If you stand with me, then I will stand up for you. Stand with me, and I will stand up for you.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
That was just awesome. Wonderful. All right, that's great.
Thank you
So
much.
we're going to take a break, come right back, and stay with us. All right. Joining us here on Talkback, of course, John King over there. I'm Peter Christian. I want to say thanks to Jason Marks for joining us this morning. We have Rob Quist, of course, a famed musician, songwriter, and now politician.
My goodness, who would have ever thought that? From poet to politician.
There you go. There's a book in there somewhere.
We have a question or a comment, I guess, from Greg on Facebook. He says, Montana Democrats are looking forward to voting for Rob Quist in May. Well, let's just start by kind of letting you go for a little bit about some of the ideas that you're running on. More than just the short campaign and wanting to represent Montana. I mean, for what? Like, what are some of the big causes you want to support?
And we've got to remember, this is you being on a national stage here.
It is, and I've heard the phrase, all eyes are on Montana. Of course, I think given the climate of this last election, I think that, as you probably are aware of, many of my friends are just in shock and disbelief and wanted to crawl into a cave and curl up in a ball and disconnect, But I had this great high school coach that probably had one of the greatest effects on my life. And he taught me many of the lifelong lessons that you need, that discipline and respect for your worthy opponents, which is, of course, sadly lacking in today's politics. But I think one of the most important things, which relates to this topic, is that the ability to dig down inside yourself when the going gets tough. And I think the going just got very tough, and so I guess that was probably the main reason I'm in this, is because we really need to all of us stand up and be a part of this process, to to become involved and to try to bring respect back to the whole thing, and that's just something as who we are as Montanans. Montana probably has one of the most diverse populations because of we have our proud native tribes that have been here for countless generations, and we have immigrants from all over the world here. But we've learned that we have a unity and strength. We're neighbors to each other. We rely on each other, and when we have differences, we sit down and we work them out. We counsel together, but we do it with respect, and we don't denigrate each other. And so that's the conversation.
You haven't been to Helena lately, have you?
Well, and I have. I was in Helena all last week, and I have to say that there is really an energized movement that are ready to step forward, and so I want to be a part of that movement. One thing I'm really gratified to see in Helena is the youth that are there. There's some really, really fine young men and women that are really they're invested in this whole process, and so everybody else is discouraged, but I see great things. In fact, when the whole election happened, I thought, this is an opportunity, and I understand. I think I have a good understanding why the election went the way that it did. I think a lot of people, and my family, I was raised in a Republican household, and my siblings are still all staunch Republicans, and many of them voted for Trump, and they're very smart people. But I think that given the climate of what happened, and and kind of the manipulations and the control that big money interests have had in our politics, I think that many people just wanted to throw a bomb into this thing and blow the whole thing up and start again. And so I understand that. But, there's just so many. I think one of the biggest disparities that we have in this country right now is when I was younger, the middle class was probably as strong as it's ever been. We had strong unions and our farmers and ranchers had great prices. But I think, it's just been worn down now. If you look at a chart as to the super rich as opposed to the middle class, I mean, the money that the super rich are making is so far off the chart that you can't even see it. They had to literally stack it 3 times to the right just to keep it on the chart. And so I think that, we have to really understand that that there has to be an equality in abundance. I've always been the one that I've always really proud of myself in paying my musicians, better than anybody else. And so I was talking about this on one of my meetings up in Teton County, and there was so I was talking about how this economist had stated that the reason people become super rich is they don't pay other people the value of their services. And so this crusty old rancher stepped up from the back and he says, "Well, Rob," he said, "money is a lot like BS. If you pile it up, it just starts to stink. But if you spread it around, it grows everything." And I said, but I couldn't have said it clearer myself.
There's a bumper sticker right there.
Now, Rob, a question for you. If you win the primary and are allowed to go ahead in the general, there's some strong headwinds for you. Mm-hmm. Pat Williams was the last House candidate to win statewide as a Democrat. Montana went 55% for Donald Trump to 35% for Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. And we don't even matter. I mean, we're late in the voting. So I guess my question for you is, how do you see pulling that off? How do you convince a state that went all in for Donald Trump, a majority went for Donald Trump, to switch sides and go for a Democrat in this general U.S. House election?
And if you don't mind me throwing this in there, aside from their natural predilection to admire you because of your success in music. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got to be about more than that.
It is, and that's why I feel like I have connections to Montanans I think that many people do not have because of my upbringing in the ranching farming community, and I understand the concerns that they face, with with trade agreements that are not necessarily geared in their favor, and of course, as I said, I worked in the oil field construction company for a summer, and I played in every small town and every big city in this state, and I know this state as well as anybody. Both the wildlands and and the highways, and I don't think that there's probably one road that I haven't been down. Excuse me. And so I think that people of Montana, they know me and I know them. I've spent a lifetime telling their stories through song and through poetry. And so I think that I can make that connection where maybe someone else might not be able to.
So let's know you a little better. When we get back, I want you to just lay out some of your policy opinions.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit. What do you think about trade negotiations with other countries? What do you think about the Electoral College? What do you think about abortion? What do you think about some of these big topics that are going to come up in a general campaign?
I'm ready.
And the phone lines are open if you want to quiz Rob Quist. Quiz Quist.
You're so good at this.
Thank you so much. I'm here all week. every day. Okay, we're going to come right back. Stay with us. All right, we are back. This is Talk Back. And no, that's not Rob Quist. That's Huey Lewis.
Huey Lewis is a friend of mine. I've jammed with him on stage. He's a great guy and a great musician. He's one of my favorites.
Awesome.
So,
all right, go ahead, John. I got you. Go ahead.
Let's just talk a little bit about one of the big topics the Democrats are talking about nationwide is this whole idea that the Electoral College is a thing of the past. Al Gore has talked about it, former presidential candidate. But in order for the Electoral College to ever go away, it would require a House vote. And most people say that would be impossible because small states wouldn't want to do that because they'd be shooting themselves in the foot. My question for you is...
Are you talking about a constitutional?
Yeah.
This is a constitutional issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my question for you is, what do you think about the Electoral College? Do you think it's satisfactory? Do you think it needs to be changed? Should we change the Constitution?
Well, I think that the Electoral College, it's obviously it was something that was created, so long ago because of the lack of the communication to reach the electors, the people, But here's the thing: is that I know that a lot of people, given the results of this last election, said this is not fair. Let's throw this out. But on the other hand, the Electoral College will give places like Montana with a low populational base more of an equal say in what happens. So I think we have to consider that before we go throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, you hit the ball mostly out of the park for me. When you say consider that, like for me, I think any Montana representative should say easily the Electoral College needs to stay. It gives Montana so much more power than we would have otherwise.
Absolutely.
That it would be foolish to throw it out.
Because if it wasn't for the Electoral College, the president every year would be elected by California and New York.
That's exactly right. And this gives the entire country to be in the conversation. And so I think that we have to, it's not about just population. It's also about demographics and where you live. And everybody's got to have a say in this. One of my main campaign platforms is that it's got to work for everybody, or it doesn't work for anybody.
One of the things that's really seems to, at least from the outside, be attacking the Democratic Party and its belief system right now is this debate between the types of work that are supported through the unions and other groups, specifically environmental groups, that are sometimes, it seems to be there's a conflict. Or even when it comes to policing and when it comes to police unions, things like this. There seems to be these conflicts developing that Democrats have a hard time dealing with. And in Montana, it's most clearly things like coal union jobs or railroad jobs versus environmentalism and its positions. How would you, as a candidate, deal with that split?
Well, first of all, I'm a union member as well. I'm been a long-time member of Local 498, which was, of course, here in Missoula. Now it's part of they combined with the union in Helena, and so I understand. And as I stated earlier, I think that the reason that the middle class is disappearing is because the unions have been beaten down. And of course, I'm also a staunch environmentalist because I just love our wildlands, and that comes to public lands too. I will defend our public lands, with my last breath. But talking about let's talk about the coal situation here. I think what a lot of people have to realize is that our state budget, is really predicated on the coal sales right now, and the reason that the budget is so low is because the market in China is kind of slowed down, and so they're not taking as much coal, and so consequently,
well, it's not that they're not taking as much; they can't get as much because environmental laws in places like Washington State and California, they can't ship the coal off the coast over to China. They want it, they just can't get it right now.
Right, well, they get it from Australia. Well, they still get it. They just get dirtier coal.
Right. Yeah. But the thing is, that's a lot of our state budget. I think that due to the fact that coal sales are down, if Governor Bullock had not put aside $300 million that the Republicans wanted to give back as a tax rebate, had he not done that, our state would be in trouble right now. We would have a big deficit to deal with. So you have to balance these issues. As I said, it's got to work for everybody.
Oh, our state is in trouble right now, regardless.
Yeah, well, not as much as say Wyoming or Idaho. The states around us are in they have much more dire consequences than we are facing.
Fair enough, but that budget discussion is a big one. A lot of people look at the Obama years as a time where lots of great ideas were proposed, but what happened at the end of it was a whole lot of debt. And when you look at the debt on a national level, it's just a staggering number.
It is.
And And that is just something that's really hard for me to find Democrats to talk about in an educated way. And I just kind of want to get your take on it, because there's always this appeal to the populism side of the argument that we need to do these things, do more stuff for the people. But then there's always this setback in that it costs a lot of money and we don't have it.
Well, let's talk about that. Here we've got these two wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. We have been in those wars. They're the longest running wars in the history of our country. And I was against that from the beginning. Some of my Republican friends, were like, "We're going to go in there," and I said,
You were against Afghanistan?
I was totally against it right from the beginning. And my point was that, the Soviet Union had been in there for 17 years and had no success. And my point was, what makes us think that it's going to be any different for us? And so here we are. I lost some buddies in Vietnam. This is an emotional thing for me. And so I've been against us going to different parts of the world and trying to
being the world's policeman.
Being the world's policeman, and it's not for spreading freedom. I think it's for spreading for these special interests that want to control the resources of some of these countries.
What resources in Afghanistan do we need to control?
The thing is that we could get into this, but
I would like to, because it sounds a little conspiratorial to me.
Well, as you know, there were poppy fields that were actually, the Taliban at that time had eliminated all the poppy fields, and so we get back in there, and all of a sudden these poppy farmers are back in producing this to create opium, So
you think the U.S. got involved for
opium?
Well,
I'm not going to say that, but we obviously, I think that we're in the Mideast for two reasons. I think it's for the oil interests that are there, and also I think that a lot of the military-industrial complex, companies like, they're definitely making a lot of money on this too. Okay, let me just finish this. So, we have a friend that he was a renter from us, and he also plows, and he went over to Afghanistan, and he thought, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to be part of this. It's going to be freedom, So he got over there. He would walk down the street, and people would spit on him, and they don't want us there. And he watched the same school being bombed and rebuilt 5 times. Think of all the resources that we're putting into this war, trillions and trillions of dollars. And it's creating a backlash of terror against our own people. I think that if we could use all the resources and the money, think of all the trillions of dollars to have our forces over there, the oil that we're using, to power all the vehicles, and if we spent that on taking health care for our own people, I think that would be a much better way of spending it.
I understand the argument for pacifism on a moral plane. I guess on a practical level, though, would you apply that to all wars? Do you think that we should have stayed out of the Korean War and let North Korea run South Korea? Because I think the whole world would be in a much worse place if that were the case today.
Well, I just think we have to examine the motives. Sometimes I don't think the motives that the reason that we're in many places, and of course you have to take it by country basis. But I think the motives for being in some of these places and regime change. When we took out Saddam Hussein, that threw that whole area, that whole part of the world into chaos. There was a natural balance of power there, and now it's just chaos. And look what's come of that. I think that it's just almost like the way that man tinkers with nature, and we take one species out, and all of a sudden it upsets the whole balance, the whole chain of things, and then the other species start to crash. I think that analogy can be applied to our regime change.
We're going to come right back. We also have Dave on the line, and we have 3 other lines open. Rob Quist joining us. We're talking about his policies. Should he be elected as Montana's congressman?
The number, by the way, to call in is 721-1290.
And we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. John King right over there. And joining us in studio, Rob Quist, who, aside from being a phenomenal musician, songwriter, is also thrown his quite considerably sized cowboy hat into the ring.
By the way, we've tested it. It's real cowboy hat.
Let's get Dave on the line. Dave, you're on with Rob Quist. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask him about 3 things, and then I want to listen off phone.
Okay.
First is, what do you think about the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi? Second, where do you stand on the CSKT Water Compact? And third, what about global warming? Bye.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Okay, one, two, three. There you go.
Oh
One was
boy, now,
Gaddafi.
those are. This is like I feel like I'm standing up at the bat and he's throwing me like a knuckleball and a inside
And a slider.
Well,
Yeah, slider.
Gaddafi should be easy after the Afghanistan discussion, I think.
Well, as I said, it's. I think that it's. I think we really have to be careful about as we talked about being the world's policeman and. It's we commit so many resources and so many of the lives of our young men and women, and I guess what I want to say about that is that I have friends that are in the healthcare business, and they tell me that the veterans that are coming back that are so broken and unable to reintegrate into society, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. It's going to get so much worse, and so I guess that the whole involvement of trying to overthrow governments. This is something that our government has been doing for years. Where we overthrew Allende in Chile, and I mean it's just been a systematic thing. So of course I probably don't understand the ins and outs as well as someone who is living the life over in those areas. But I really feel that regime change has been something that we need to really examine as a people and be aware of the consequences of those kinds of actions.
How do you apply that to some of our ongoing negotiations and disputes? Right now, for example, there's a trade finagling going on with the United States. More than that,
The
I guess
agreement
an
with
embargo with Russia because of the invasion of Ukraine.
They think with Iran is another deal. I mean, there are people that want to quite literally, forgive the term, blow that up.
I know it. Yeah, and I think I think trade agreements. We have to examine that. Well, here's a kind of example of the trade agreements, and I know that I probably am not party to the really intense negotiations, but here's how the trade agreement will affect, say, my family personally. My sister and her husband are still on the family farm up in Cutbank, and as an example of this trade agreement, there's a gentleman that comes down from Canada and buys grain from them, takes it back up across the border to Lethbridge, reclassifies it as feed, and then takes it down to Great Falls and gets a higher price for it.
Wow.
I mean, there are things like this, that I know that trade agreements, that are, they kind of they've been negotiated, and it's I don't want to demonize them, but I just want to point out that we have to be able to take care of our own, before we take care of the people of the world. So he also was talking about the water agreements. I think that first of all, I'm a member of the Blackfeet Headwaters Alliance, and I think that I'm glad that they finally are getting this water compact together because I have deep connections to Indian country, having been raised across the river from the Blackfeet Reservation, and many of the tribes throughout Montana are some of my closest friends, and so I think this water agreement has really been a long time coming, and I'm glad it's finally settled. Dave, as far as the issue of global warming, I know that there's a lot of debate on that, but my point is that this all comes down to the issue of pollution. All the wild areas in the world are all being threatened by pollution, and which if global warming is a factor, then I think that we have to recognize that it's being caused by pollution. And so that's the issue for me. We have to really, really mitigate the pollution that is happening. Our Mother Earth is being poisoned, and we have to learn how to take better care of her.
So do you support the Clean Coal EPA regulations?
Well, I don't know if there's actually a thing called clean coal. I don't know if
it's called the Clean Air Act? Well, I'm sorry. I forgot the name of Obama's new resolutions that were opposed and then denied by the Supreme Court. It's been an ongoing battle, but it helped to shut down Colstrip and other Montana coal.
Right.
Do you remember the name?
Okay, let's talk about Colstrip. Here's this Colstrip relies on coal, but I think that we need to really embrace technologies that are cleaner. For instance, here's Colstrip. It has all these electrical lines that are already set up to transmit power throughout. And so, what better place to build wind generators? And I think there actually is a proposal to put many new wind generators in that country, but they have the infrastructure to have the power go through those power lines that are already set up. I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay.
I'd really like to hear, right now there's a lot of debate about health care. The Affordable Care Act is probably on its way out. When we get back from the break, I'd like you to segue into kind of what you think we should fight for.
Okay, and by the way, all four of our lines are open. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. If you want to just make a request or a question on Facebook, we'll do that. Pass it along to Rob Quist, who's getting a lot of free politicking time here. So that's what it's all about. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back on Talkback. Rob Quist joining us, in studio this morning, and he's got a cold, I got a cold, all God's children got a cold. Anyway.
I guess I'm not God's child.
When I get to hell, I got
if you hang around us long enough.
Significant soteriological problems discovered by John today.
We will be happy to infect you. It was what C.S. Lewis called good infection. Anyway.
So is this segueing into the healthcare talk?
Well, I think that would be appropriate.
Why not? Yeah. Let's talk about healthcare.
Okay,
my first question to
you. Go ahead, fire.
Do you believe, and this is I think where a lot of people go in either direction, do you believe that healthcare should be a right?
Well, let's talk about this. I was asked to be the last speaker for the healthcare rally at the Missoula Public Library on Sunday, and so of course I really had to really think about my position on that. And well, first of all, let's kind of examine how the Healthcare Act came to be. When it was first proposed, it was meant to be a system, a single payer system, much like Medicare is today and Social Security, where you walk in, you show your card, you're covered, no questions asked. But, of course, as we know, there's forces that really thought that there wasn't going to be enough profit in all this whole system. And so with their lobby, they forced the system that we have today, which is, basically you still have premiums that you have to pay, high premiums for basically what is catastrophic health insurance, where you're only covered for in case something just catastrophic goes wrong. And so I think many attempts were made to rectify ACA over the years, but they were just met with a stone wall from these forces. And let's just call them who they are. The pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies, I think, had a pretty heavy hand in this. I have a personal story where I went in for just a simple gallbladder surgery, and I had a doctor who was scheduled twice as many surgeries as he should have in the time allotted. Well, the long of it is that he severed my common bile duct, and so I went and it was just at the pivotal time of my career. I had just had a great band together. I had the bus, the sound company, and I just got a record contract offer from Warner Western.
Wow! And
but I had that surgery. It was like somebody turned off the jet engine, and I went into a tailspin, and I lost my record contract because I couldn't tour, and I had to go over to Seattle for reconstructive surgery. I had probably 3 surgeries in all during that time frame, but for 2 years I was just out of the picture. Well, the result of that was that I had the pre-existing conditions, so I went for years without health insurance, and then finally I had to have back surgery because I'd lifted equipment wrong and threw my back out. And for almost like 9 months, I was in excruciating pain. I was doing anything not to have surgery because A, I couldn't afford it, and B, I didn't really trust the situation. But finally, I decided that there was no other out, and I had surgery by one of Missoula's best, Carter Beck, just basically saved my life.
He's outstanding.
He is outstanding. And when I had my surgery, I literally danced out of the hospital. But as a result of that, since I didn't have insurance, I had to cover that all myself, and so it just about sunk our family. And the only way that I was able to get out of that was I went on Social Security and Medicare early. I had to take it when I'm not sure if I was 63 or 64, but had I not had that to go to, I would have been in deep trouble.
So how do you apply the lessons you learned from your personal experience to policy for the United States? Because I could learn a lesson from your story for both cases. one of the arguments against the Affordable Care Act was the attrition of doctors. Less doctors means more doctors having to spend more time on more patients, giving less attention to each, which was actually the start of your problem. And the other thing is the pre-existing conditions. Now, Trump has claimed he's going to keep pre-existing conditions as part of policy going forward. So I guess when you look at the Affordable Care Act versus what could come, I mean, are you optimistic about future changes, or you want to preserve the Affordable Care Act?
Well, I think that there's a lot of forces that want to just eliminate it and go back to the system it was, but which was worse than what the Affordable Care Act is now. I mean, I met this couple from Denmark that was touring the United States, and they have universal health care, a single payer system, and they were genuinely worried that if something went wrong, what would they do? And
is that what you would like for the United States?
I would like to see a single payer system. Absolutely, I think that's we have the resources to do that.
And what would be the source of that money?
Well, I think that, like I said, the money we're spending in all these wars throughout the world,
It's not going to stop, by the way.
Yeah, I know it. It should. It should.
And to be fair, I don't think that money, the money that we spend on our foreign policy, is going to be enough to cover the single-payer health care system.
Well, the way that Canada started out is that everybody in the country paid $300. I think it was $300. I can't remember if it was $300 a month or $300 a year, but anyway, to kind of start it out. And now they don't have to pay anything. And I know that there's a lot less of the population, but to me, it's where you spend your resources, and I think the health of of this company. Another thing that I want to talk about is that the health, our healthcare, we don't get to pick our providers. There is a medical doctor up in the Flathead Valley, and she's been the most popular doctor in the Flathead for the last 6 years running, and so I see her. And so she's not covered by any health insurance plan.
Wow.
And so, of course, I was having some thyroid issues, and my doctor wanted to put me on this drug called levothyroxine. And so, of course, I thought, well, before I do this, I'm going to research exactly what the side effects are. And so, I mean, it's just like those ads you see on television.
Oh, that's terrible.
It's like side effects are...
You left Lego fall out, yeah.
Congestive heart failure and sexual dysfunction and death.
And gas.
And, of course, the next ads are, if you've taken whatever this drug is, you should call it, and it's just...
You had me at sexual dysfunction.
Yeah.
All right, stop reading at that point.
Okay, but I just want to say...
real quick, go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, that's the thing is that, people should be able to pay to pick the health care provider that they want.
All right. Now we're up against our final. It's a 1-minute break. We have 2 callers that want to visit with you.
Okay.
So we're going to get them on in a minute, exactly 1 minute from now. So stay with us. And we're back on Talkback. Just about 6 or 7 minutes left in the program. Rob Quist joining us here in studio, and been doing a pretty good job talking about policy.
Well, thank you. People are surprised that I would be, of course, entering into this arena, but I think we all as citizens, we really care about the issues that face us on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so let's get Dennis on the line first. Been waiting the longest. Dennis, you're up. Hi.
Yeah, my question is, where does he stand on the Second Amendment? I know the Democrat Party goal is to eliminate the Second Amendment, and would he stand up to the Democrat Party? I'll listen off the air.
Okay, thanks for the call. So how do you feel about
thank you. That's a great question. Of course, being raised in the ranching farming community, I mean, we, having firearms was a way of life for us. That's every young man and woman, I should say too, has. That's part of our culture. You learn respect for firearms. You learn the proper care and how to keep them in a safe manner. And it's a time-honored tradition to bring meat home to the table, and I've done that many times. So that's something that I will defend. But as far as assault rifles and that type of thing, I think those aren't meant for hunting. And
how do you describe an assault rifle?
Well, it's something that you can fire more than several rounds in per second. So
if you can fire more than 3 rounds per second, it'd be an assault rifle.
3 rounds per second. I don't know. I would probably say even more than that. But
because I got a 22 at home, I can do that.
Okay,
I killed many a varmint with that 22.
I know, and
I would hate for it to be considered an assault rifle.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is I learned on a 22 single shot. I mean, and so you learn how to get one good shot in, and that's and I mean, if you can shoot 10 rounds a second, I mean, that to me, that's not sporting. Yeah. And so, but anyway, I think a lot of this narrative has been driven by, again, gun manufacturers. I think that this whole paranoia, but that Obama's coming to take your guns, who benefits from that? My mother was one of the most incredibly wise people, and she gave me a phrase that I've been using a lot more since I'm getting into politics, and that phrase is consider the source. What when someone says or does something, what is the game what is the skin in the game?
What's the self-interest?
Yeah,
right.
And so, and then the other phrase is that old Watergate deep throat phrase: follow the money.
Right.
So consider the source, follow the money. If in this narrative, if people say that Obama's coming to get your guns, and then who gets, where does that, where's that coming from, and how does that benefit them? Well, I think when people are paranoid that people are going to take their guns away, what do? They go out and buy a whole bunch more guns, and who benefits from that?
We got to go to another call, but just real quick so we're clear. When it comes to the issue of assault rifles, which you said you weren't really a supporter of, do you support the government being able to say that they're illegal to sell?
Well, I think that they should be. It's like cars. You should have a license. To drive a car, and why not have a license to own those types of firearms?
Okay,
but don't take them away.
Let's get moving along. Mark, you're on with Rob Quist. Go ahead.
Hello, Rob. Sounds to me from your presentation today that you did not want me and my fellow stockholders that invest in pharmaceutical companies to make any money. You want pharmaceutical companies to sell their products at cost to help people? I'll listen out there. Thank you.
So.
We don't. My friend Brian Schweitzer first made his kind of. I think he gained notoriety from taking seniors to Canada to get prescription drugs that are so much cheaper. And this last vote about not being able to to have cheaper prescription drugs. I mean, it said, and I think the argument was because that we're not sure if they're safe. Well, if they're safe for Canadians, why aren't they safe for Americans? And so, personally, I do everything I can to avoid taking pharmaceutical drugs. There are natural cures that this doctor I was telling you about that are so much safer and don't have all the heinous side effects. I mean, my own mother, she was taking 15 types of drugs, and nobody knows how those things interact with each other. You take one drug, you have a side effect, and so you take another drug to mitigate that side effect.
That's why you're supposed to ask your pharmacist.
And
right.
That's right. And so, to me, it's just a slippery slope you slide down.
No, we have to move along because we only have 2.5 minutes and 4 callers. So I want to get as many as we can.
Okay,
John, you're on with Rob Quist. Go.
Hi, Rob. You said you went on this Social Security disability when you were 53. Are you still on Social Security disability?
No, that was 63, and it wasn't necessarily disability. It was I'm not taking disability. I had to go on Social Security. I had to take it when I was about 63 or 64, just so I could have Medicare and have that type.
I thought you said 53. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, they wouldn't give it to me.
Thanks for the call. Okay. The next one is Kevin. Kevin, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Well, again, it always never phases me anymore that people get two things mixed up, hunting and the Second Amendment. Hunting has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. Second Amendment is to protect yourself against tyranny in the government. And why folks mix them up and compare them, I'll never understand other than they're just uneducated. And that's my comment.
Okay. So would you like to respond to that?
Well, I think that, I think that having firearms to protect yourself from the government, I mean, who would think that you could protect yourself from if there was any kind of a SWAT team that would come and I think even people that have open carry that are involved in some of these incidents where there is a shooter, I mean, I don't think that they can actually, be a part of the solution. You have to leave that to the forces that are going to deal with that. So,
just real quick on the prescription drug things from Canada, which we were specifically talking about. There was a vote recently, and John Tester, a Democrat in the Senate, voted against that bill. Mm-hmm. Would you have supported it?
I would have supported that one myself, and so you'd have to ask John why he voted the way he did.
Okay, we have exactly. Tell you what, it wouldn't be fair to we only have 1 minute left.
Okay.
So I want, you're on the stump. Give me 30 seconds as to why we should vote for Rob Quist.
Well, I think that I am in a unique position here because, in my walks of life, I think that I have, really connected with Montanans on every level. And I think I understand the concerns in given the history of my life in this state, probably as well as anyone can. And I think that I could really be a voice for the state, for the people of the state.
Quite literally.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I have been, and I would continue to be. And I know this is not going to be an easy thing to go to the halls of Congress, but I can do this.
And we're out of time. Thank you for spending so much time. Thanks for the song.
You bet.
Appreciate it. All right. Thank you all for being a part of it. We'll see you Monday. We have Health Talk.
And then Legislative Representative Ron Eli will be in.